Welcome back.
Today's September 19th, right? September 19th. And, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It could be the 20th.
It's September 19th, and it's very interesting times we're living in. That's something I say almost all the time. We do a get-together to just talk through what the hell's going on in culture, what the hell's going on in the world, what's going on in our societies in the immediate sphere, as well as the broader context of things. That recurring theme, is, are we like crying, something's going on with the world, or are we just making sense of things? I never wanted, at least the vision of the conversations that we have here, to really dive into a political leaning or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But what I've noticed over the past week and a half, and even leading up to it, what I've noticed all year is that strange theme of a narrative that's seeping into families that's very derisive, very just driven to this hostile faction creating stances that you have to defend. That was already creeping. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk being assassinated on September 10th, your birthday, has just opened up a whole nother variable and a whole nother, I don't even know what to call it, a schism, an awakening. Obama called it an inflection point. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things going on with that. And everybody is being awakened to have a voice about it for some reason. But that's my point, was that I never wanted this conversation, podcast, what have you, to be a politically leaned. But politicalizing things, politics has come to our door without us asking.
Yeah.
It's seeping into our houses. It was kind of... there was during a time where, not too long ago, maybe 5 years ago or whatever, where one's political leaning was your political leaning, and you might have some difference of opinion, but people usually didn't talk about politics or religions, one of those hush-hush things, and then you just kind of kept it to yourself, and you believed in it and whatnot. But being politically agnostic was very normal, especially among groups of friends. You can go out and vote, you can have different positions, but rarely does the idea of political leanings come up in normal talk amongst family and friends. But now it's just encroaching on every space now. And maybe this is just me.
Well, why do you think that, though? Why do you think that's happening,
But that's the point. That's the uncovery part of this. The Trump factor obviously is like the lightning rod, or the effect that just drives through the system to create conversation. But I think what's different this time versus his first term, and again, I never really followed politics at all, but again, it's come to our doorstep. It's come to our phone screens. It's without us wanting it to. It's purposely triggering. But what's different perhaps this time around in this term, I don't know. I'm still putting my finger on that, but there's also, I see a different Donald Trump in the White House too. Mm-hmm. And because of that, different circumstances. And the opposing side also has a more ready game plan for the second term too, the opposing side. And so that's sort of like a introduction to kind of what's going on right now in September 19th, 2025, kind of the state of affairs, our mindsets.
You know what I think part of it is too is, besides the fact that we're on the verge of some major technological advances within this generation of not just the internet and how we get our information, but the implementation of AI. But I think with all this technology, it's really just allowing the platforms and the ability that opens its wave and gives birth to the idea of I think humanity as a whole is at a pivotal point of an inflection point in our species, where this is a spiritual awakening almost to a certain degree, where people are really waking up and really asking themselves, purpose and meaning and what our moral values are. It's right dead center of everything that we do now. And again, maybe a lot of it has to do with our age and where we're at in our lives, and we're just paying more attention to it. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's overflowing in all generations, all ages, but I really think it's also the culmination of everything, allowing that to really explode. And I really think it's a changing point in our society and humanity as a whole, where we're really fighting these spiritual battles, and we're really trying to figure out exactly the purpose of what we're all doing here, and what's all happening. And again, with that in mind, there's so many different perspectives and viewpoints, and people are going to hold so tightly their beliefs that they want to defend it. And that's why you have this mashup of, arguing and debating, and even down to violence, and that's kind of what we're leading into. I don't know exactly what's going to happen on the backside of that. Does one side win? Do we have a kind of a overall arching understanding of one another and live within peace? Or do we just come to a point where it's just a major catastrophic, event happens where we go into a civil war and there's a bunch of people dying, and whoever survives outside of that, and who knows, we'll have to pick up the pieces and figure it out. I really doubt that it's going to get to that point. I think as a whole, as barbaric as we can be, we also are, I think the spirit of humankind is really trying to just really figure this all out, with all the mess, and try and pull away all of our emotions and all of this, and try and get to a place where it's like, let's find and seek the bottom truth of all of it. And regardless of all the violence and the differences and the anger and all of that, we eventually will find some kind of truth and meaning within all of this. And whatever that is, I think the truth is going to be what's going to be the strongest, that's going to be held on to. Over time, it's going to reveal itself. And I think eventually people are going to carry that torch on. And then that's kind of how the new way of thinking or living and being amongst each other is going to be, I saw an interesting debate that Tucker Carlson was mentioning, who mentioned that different cultures can't live within
amongst each other,
coexist.
Before you talk about that, who was he talking with somebody, or was it an interview? Or
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Piers Morgan. I think he was with Piers Morgan
on his show. Piers Morgan show.
Piers Morgan show. And he mentioned something about, cultures can't really technically exist within each other. They will battle, and eventually one culture is going to outwin the other. Like you can't live in a society where one side believes this and the other side believes that. Eventually they're going to keep battling it out to a point where somebody, is a champion of a certain belief or something like that.
Yeah.
There's different racials, and we have, racial backgrounds. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with what country you came from and all this kind of stuff.
Tucker Carlson's a pro-segregationist. Then.
Yeah.
He's a he wants to go back to, whites-only schools and black schools, because that's just the way he structured that. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, exactly. I mean, that's exactly how they're going to frame it, But there's a lot of truth in what he was saying there, and again, culture doesn't mean that you don't have a respect for people's backgrounds or their beliefs or their traditions and things of the sort. But we're talking about culture as in a way of believing, a way of accepting, a way of how we bring up our future generations and how we raise them and teach them. Eventually, one culture is going to win out the other, and I think the idea really is to get down to the bottom of truth. Like and truth can be extremely difficult, right? Like what's true for one person is true for another person, but I'm talking about maybe a divinity of some kind of ultimate truth. And that's why religion comes so much into play in the mix of all of this,
Some would say, no, religion, that's the worst way to, how could you, that's only one side of the truth. That ostracizes anyone who's not religious.
Yeah.
So they have no truth.
Yeah. But that's exactly the point. It brings it back down to, okay, at its most fundamental core, the meanings and purpose behind all of this. Scientifically, if you're an atheist and you believe in all these other different things, which is absolutely factual and great and everything to that, that's very valid in its argument. But does it answer the idea of a purpose? Does it answer the idea of of meaning of why we're here, you know.
Does it help us make sense of different value systems? Not value systems, not that one's better than the other,
Yeah.
but they may be different.
Yeah.
And different priorities. So how does truth impact some of that?
Yeah, I mean, and they can argue a scenario where maybe this is more to do with sociology and survival and so forth, and how we interact with one another. But also at the same time, that doesn't really answer the meaning and purpose of why we're here in the first place, you know. And I think we've come to that pivotal point. A lot of people are now really opening things up. And again, I guess this is a lot to be influenced with the events that happened with COVID and everybody being, you know, separated and really challenging and looking at your life like, like what the hell is going on in my life and what am I really doing, you know? You know, and how you earn and make your keep and raise your family and just live within society and so forth. And then you start to ask yourself, you know, like, who am I to the world and what am I doing? What's my legacy? What's my purpose and my meaning there? You know, and that's, I think that's kind of where it is. And again, that's my thoughts on the matter and why the entire political world has been knocking on our front door now. And literally, like, when we say that, it's like, it's everywhere. It's in entertainment. It's on every single social platform that you go. You can't get on X or Facebook without seeing the political rants on every single side of the argument, you know?
So everything about like the moral, everything about the moral clarity piece, I think there's a reason why there are a number of folks that feel like they have to now follow the narrative and see what the hell's going on. Because if you are agnostic about it, if you're just indifferent, your political agendas aren't your thing. Well, now you're being pressed to have to look into why there are these the frequency of these high profile killings, how they're being motivated, what the hell's going on behind the scenes with a House representative being killed in Minnesota, with the shooting at the Catholic Church, both of those in Minneapolis here in our backyard, and then with this. And so that's what I mean by politicizing has encroached on normal households. And then you start to look for that in every little detail. Like I discovered that one of the things about the killer, Tyler Robinson, what some people, or what was said was that even in just leading up to Charlie Kirk arriving, it was a spat at a family dinner that they had that exploded. So, but that's more of the narrative that I'm seeing, even in my household, people's households, that this is a divide that's beyond just at Congress, a lot across the political aisle. American families, American households being divided. And it draws us back to, well, if there's any common denominator, it would be truth, right? But that's my concern. Truth has always been sort of relative. Is it religion? Is it not religion? Is it science? But truth has been is the most relative I think it's ever been. And not only relative as in, you know, people are, there's a wide spectrum. The spectrum is going wider. I'm not just that, but relative as in how you prove its value. If you make a statement about something, how do you prove its truthfulness? It's I call it's an epistemological crisis. Epistemological crisis means, how do we know what we believe is true? No one cares to ask that question anymore. If you think it's raining outside, how do you know it's raining? Well, you can either use your eyes and ears, look out the window, but if you weren't stuck in a basement, you didn't know if it was raining, you'd have to check your app or your phone. And that's your way to understand how you know things, or how do you believe. It's like investigating your process for investigating things. That's completely non-existent. And that's the other element that's being in this perfect storm that's happening. Is that the devices, the technological implementation of how we perceive truth, it's all algorithmically fed. It's not just fed for convenience, it's almost exploited. I'm not even going to say almost. It is exploited. It's exploited to people's leanings, what people like to watch, whatever grabs your attention in the moment. And that's the epistemological crisis I think we're living in right now.
But it also just doesn't just demand your attention. It almost demands that you pick a side. You know,
It's emotionally provocative,
it is.
intentionally.
And it's fed exactly based on the algorithm and what it understands with your own personal stance and beliefs at the current moment, you know, and then they feed you those viewpoints and those sides from all perspectives, you know, leaning towards whatever side that it kind of refers to based on your clicks, right? But yeah, I mean, that's the scary part. It's like you can no longer ignore these things like you used to in the past. You know, it's just before politics and, you know, debate and religion and all stuff was just always over our heads. You know, we're just kind of living our lives and doing our own thing. And, you know, we pay attention to all the little minor stuff and the distractions in life, or else just the little things within our lives, you know, the gossiping in your small circle in your little corner of the world. But now it's like everything's in your face and it demands that you give what's your viewpoint, you know, which side are you going to take? And then that's why you see so many people picking sides right now. The people are like, I'm on this side. I'm team this. I'm team Trump. I'm team, you know, progressive and liberal, or team gays and team pro-choice and pro-life and whatever. It's just, it's really exhausting every single side of it.
It is.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, very much so, for those that feel like political agenda has encroached their own family relationships, and to make an attempt to make sense of this all by the Google research isn't enough anymore. It's just one element of things. You start to then open your eyes by how far do you want to go down a rabbit hole to uncover some claims or the truthfulness behind certain claims that, for example, that our current administration is the is a duplication and new version of the Hitler led Nazism in 1930s Germany. If that's the narrative and if that's your truth, you can probably find enough material to lead you into that direction and in your Google search, because that's just the way it is. There's this widespread relativism. And when you were talking about, well, what's that binding common denominator between two opposing tribes, that ultimate truth, whatever that is, I'm becoming more and more cynical that people may not realize there could be an ultimate truth behind what they believe, or I'm becoming more cynical that opposing sides can even agree to what that would look like. And it's because, and I'll be frank, it's because one side, primarily on the left, can't have dialogue to have a common, at least a common place where we can both source this and agree to that. Whatever facts or narratives we find from this shared source, that we can both come together and agree to something. It doesn't matter if you argue with someone on the left or the right and try to seek understanding between each other, if all you're doing is sourcing or citing your own specific authority that may be painting a certain picture. And it's not, some of those pictures may be bold-faced lies, some of that may be half-truth, some of those may be the 100% truth. But ultimately, you still have to have capacity in your mindset to say, that's not all this material that I source from my influencers. That isn't the whole picture. And if I have to check my own limitations, gaps, biases, then I need to have a conversation with someone about how they perceive and how they frame certain things. That is not possible today.
Yeah.
It's so non-existent. Matter of fact, the only person probably pushing for that was Charlie Kirk to do that activity, at least on that scale, to be on the front line, to have conversations with people. So his killing is more than just the loss of a person, the loss of a father, the loss of a husband. It's the loss of that methodology of real conversation that's gone now.
Yeah.
It's entirely, he was the face of that methodology of having conversations with people. It's terrible. But now what's happening is, well, let's shit on him. Let's taint his character. Let's you don't want this politicizing to drive you insane. But the more if you want to uncover what the hell's going on, the more it's making you insane, because you can't put your finger on why so many things are emotionally charged and why some people feel like there's no other option but to do the extreme, that the quote unquote the hate can't be negotiated out, to Tyler Robinson's words. When they arrive at that extreme conclusion, there's a million other things that led to that. Is it by exploitation of propaganda messaging? Is it his personal life? Is it real content? Maybe he's had interactions with Charlie Kirk in the past. We may not know that. Is it his, there was a family dinner spat. There's something going on there.
Yeah. And then also, at what point you as a person, like as an individual who wants to debate and talk about, very sensitive topics, do you get to a point where you start to think about how the words that you're saying and what you believe is being considered controversial and used against you as an attack to taint your legacy or to taint the person that you are? What actually strikes fear in the people's ability to actually think freely, because you're within this box, in this bubble of like, hey, this is the team that you play for, and you can't think outside of the team. The team thought of that's how you're supposed to accept it. If you flow with the team and you want your side to win, then you have to stay within that box, and that's where it gets really, really challenging. And I think the right's, their biggest criticism, and particularly, let's just say the trans movement, is the idea that you can't even work with the left in speaking just basic logic of or reality that a man can't be a woman, and when the right feels like, okay, if you guys believe and are on the side of a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, then there's no use in even convincing you to anything, because you've lost your sense of reality at this point in time. And that's
their reality.
Yeah, that's their reality.
We've lost our sense of reality.
Yeah. And that's the challenge.
At least that's what the right would say.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how far it's gone, where even sensible things that you would usually accept as your reality, that a man can't be a woman, if that's being thrown out the window, then how can you even have a civil conversation about anything that means anything besides your arbitrary viewpoint of your world, of what it can be, that anything and everything could be anything, then there's no base ground to have debates now, and that's where it gets challenging.
The fundamental underpinnings of having shared meaning behind certain things, and if people's liberties are encroached because they're not given the right to demonstrate their actual gender disposition, that's bad. You can't encroach on their liberties. But then it becomes more of a debacle when those liberties become policy to allow for children to have their own decision, or to allow for children to go down a certain path, or to allow for sports integration of biological males. So that's where it tumbles out of that. So then to have a conversation against that, now that's already too far. So this is no longer a personal
It becomes
liberty
controversial. It becomes almost wrong to even bring it up. The idea that you're being offensive to people who are sensitive, who have been, how do we say, marginalized within society, that they've had their upbringings and their challenges with who they're trying to work out inside themselves, and they're very sensitive, and we should be absolutely, catering and supportive of those kind of different things, to recognize their feelings and acknowledge their sense of identity. And again, I don't think there's any issue or problem with that at all in the conversation. I think that if, a lot of people who have spoken out about it, not even people in particularly the right, anybody in general, or even people on the left, like Dave Chappelle's like one of those voices, and Dave Chappelle's in no means or way a conservative at all. He's if I had to say anything, he's a hardcore liberal, and even he has those comedy statements about the trans community and the idea of identity, and what it means that he will fight to the end to protect someone's right to identify as whoever they want, but it doesn't mean that you have to participate in that kind of belief, and you have to go along with it. And now that's kind of forced speech right there that gets implemented. I don't think that we don't have anything, at least within the U.S. right now, that is designed as forced speech. It's more designed in regards to a respectful kind of consideration to address people by certain pronouns and sort of, and it almost looks bad when you don't participate in that game.
But that's the control there, though.
Yeah.
It may not be governmental enforcement of certain pronouns have to be implemented in certain,
But you get shunned.
It's the public opinion control.
Yep.
It's the court of public opinion. It's the feeling socially accepted, not being a social pariah because you aren't using your pronouns correctly. It's the control of narrative and control of labels. There's a deep embeddedness of that.
Yeah.
I say this only because for all of my life I've been only marginally interested in politics to the extent that it's always during the elections or something like that where you can see policy that might impact you, but for the most part, generally normal Americans can live out their life, seek out their career, have their hobbies, and never have politicizing come up in their lives. And in that perspective, I've leaned left in the past. I voted for Obama. I've not voted sometimes because I haven't been happy with what was offered. And in this past election, I didn't vote. I wasn't interested in either candidate or at least, I was going through a lot of personal things in my life where I just wasn't allowed to even take the conversation seriously.
Yeah.
And as things unfolded, you start to understand if you want to carve out your own sense of making sense of the world, which you kind of have to, if you want to go down that path, you're not sure what is appealing to you. You're not sure if statements or comments are actually true anymore. Because if I go down a path of wanting to support Trump's initiatives today, I could absolutely believe that he is a fascist if I read the material on a certain side. I could absolutely, it's so convincing. And then if I look at what's happening in the interplay or the context leading up into all the craziness going on today with the deportation and everything, if you look at layers of that, then you can see other sides of things. But the bottom line is that the obsession for narrative control is at its highest. And technology, the shit we get on our phone feeds and every day, is the ultimate weapon to drive that wedge deeper. And it's not just a division of belief anymore. It's no longer that. It's a division of, there's palpable hostility in every engagement right now. Yeah. And then the events, like the killings, without all the facts, to only open up for more rage, only open up for more paranoia, only open up for more. But you're right. There is a side where the more that I may lean to understanding what's going on in America, the epidemic that led us to a place where shit's falling apart and all that, the more that I kind of go down that path, the more that I start to realize that the hostilities and the inability to converse are happening on the left side. I mean, and then was it Bill Maher said that perfectly on something where it's like, I met Charlie Kirk. We don't agree on a lot of things, but he was a good guy. And for some reason, the difference between the left and right today is that you can't have conversations with the left right now. Yeah, because it's so emotionally charged, so emotionally. Because
they believe it's
and it's sad.
They believe that it's a criminal fascist and the next Hitler that's in there, and they're trying to save the country from falling. Yeah, and they truly believe that to the point where they need to move it into an actionable violence in some way. Trump again almost was killed twice. And now Charlie Kirk, which was obviously a huge Trump, supporter and advocate. He's probably one of the many reasons why Trump actually won.
Oh yeah,
so it gets to that point, and it nails home on the idea that it is challenging to speak because there is this I fear and paranoia that's kind of floating around in the air, but also at the same time, like Trump needs that too. He needs that balance of pushback because, again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, and having that power, Trump winning by this landslide, and him getting his way could lead to him being a tyrant. It could be he could become You know, I'm not saying he is now.
Yeah.
But he could lead into the actual fascist ideas that the left is screaming about and trying to warn the rest of the world about, you know, if he just gets his way every single time. So there needs to be a checks and balances in regards to power, but a meaningful check, an understanding of exactly, again, I think the argument needs to go down deeper into the ideas and the actual events and things that are happening, taken with, you know, scrutiny and deep respect to understanding the whole story before that kind of criticism and debate needs to take place. And I think that doesn't happen. People look at headlines, people look at exactly what drives the emotions of clicks and so forth, and people drive and then that's what drives the narratives. That's what drives exactly where these conversations and debates lead to, which only causes further division. That's all it accomplishes, you know. And going back, I mean, it's, you know, just talking about the whole situation that is the Jimmy Kimmel thing, which is the perfect example right now. Literally, you know, not too long ago, Charlie Kirk is shot and killed brutally in front of the whole world, assassinated. One of the craziest,
in a vicious, disgusting manner.
Exactly. And everybody sees that. And now it's like no one even talks about it because they're just so busy talking about the whole entire Jimmy Kimmel thing.
Right?
Now.
That's what kind of like.
Yeah, it just and it led back to a conversation you and I had a little while back too, not too long ago after Charlie Kirk had passed, was the left's ability to control the narrative.
Yeah, it's an obsession.
And the way I feel is basically this entire Jimmy Kimmel thing. It's not really an outrage against the idea of losing freedom of speech and so forth, and people are being censored. I think it's really just a PR stunt designed by very intelligent and AI based or whatever else to really drive the narrative elsewhere. Because when Charlie Kirk got shot, it was like, oh shit. It was like Democrats were deep in the hole. They're like, damn, we better just shut the fuck up. We can't say shit right now.
After the killing in Minneapolis,
exactly.
where someone who identified as trans killed kids. So
yeah. The whole Trump almost assassination attempts, and now Charlie Kirk shot dead. Like, okay, we maybe we need to tone down our rhetoric, you know, and we need to put out a statement to say we basically disavow any kind of political violence and so forth there. We need to make ourselves appear that way. But they knew that they were in this shit.
Yeah.
And then they came out with this entire thing the following week that Jimmy Kimmel made a grotesque, very idiotic joke about the entire Charlie Kirk thing in the midst of all the pain and the suffering and the process of seeing Charlie Kirk and knowing that he passed away. He throws that joke out there on air, on his show.
Not on his personal platform.
Yep.
Not on a personal podcast. No.
Yep.
That was going to be programmed on public airways, network television.
That millions of people are watching, and just to be that insensitive to kind of throw that out there as a joke or whatever. I'm not saying that he needs to be canceled for something like that. Okay, he's a shit person. He says those bad things and so forth. But then there was like this issue with the FCC, you know, having certain rules that are in place in regards to spreading false information or incorrect information intentionally with the knowing that it was false information. And there was different things that were in place. And I know, and again, I'm not all about the government intervening about what comedians do on late night television and so forth there at all. But the outrage around it, the reason I know that it was a PR stunt is because the amount of people who have jumped on board on spreading this information as if this was the issue of our times now, you know? Like literally Charlie Kirk just was shot dead regarding the idea of free speech. You kill a man, but yet Jimmy Kimmel is the headliner now because his show was canceled. Yeah, he's the victim.
Out of a tyrannical move from the government, which was pressure from Trump to FCC to ABC to Trump. The line of pressure command. And from their perspective, from the perspective of the left, it actually makes a lot of sense. Like it does contextually. There's even things leading up to this. This didn't happen in a vacuum. In their minds, they're connecting the dots. They saw that Trump, if he had his way, he would have canceled Jimmy Kimmel a long time ago. They've had their feuds. A perfect opportunity to, you know, strike my fist down and influence my power and remove him. So, and it looks like that. So now government control has the tyrannical power to shape the narrative and that's encroachment on free speech. And taken in and of itself, yeah, that's like that's not okay in this sort of society, in a free democratic society. It looks like a fascist tyrant. That's what it looks like on the surface. That's the optics.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, there's truth to that.
Yeah.
But what could very well be true is that ABC was following the pattern of other companies that have also done the same to do damage control, to say, fuck, Jimmy, like, you're putting us in a bind here.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they too were also disgusted by just the words themselves and didn't want to associate with it.
Yeah.
That could be a very real possibility.
Even if they weren't, then where is the outrage towards ABC's accountability over this entire situation if they're fighting for the idea of freedom of speech? And what I mean by that is ABC championed this guy for decades. You know, he was on late night, talk show forever. And the thing that I challenge is these people have been making fun of Trump since the beginning of Trump's presidency. Every single night, they built their careers on that. They joke about him all the time. If this was a power move from a centralized government, they would have been canceled years ago. And the thing is the irony of it is that late night television and whoever is left, we're talking about the Jon Stewarts, the
Jimmy
Fallon, Samantha Bee, even Bill Maher himself. They're using this exact same issue that's going on right now that happened to Jimmy Kimmel as a way to criticize Trump, but they're not being canceled. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like this
constant perpetuation of a narrative.
It's a selective outrage. That's all it is. And they use that and they blast it everywhere on all channels. It's literally all I see now, like constantly. Sure. And every single person, including celebrities, have now stepped in, like the usual suspects of like Mark Ruffalo and so forth. They've made, public statements about this, about how dangerous and wrong this is and so forth. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe in the freedom of speech, and I absolutely believe that cancel culture is bullshit, that even through bad language needs to be addressed and ignored or shunned publicly in the idea of civil discourse to prove things wrong. It shouldn't be censored. And I believe that wholeheartedly, but to take this tiny little scenario to make it the elephant in the room now, it's contrived. It's really contrived.
It's forced. It's part of the calculated messaging. It's part of the attention grabbing, the attention vacuum of there's an economy of attention. Let's take it all in. And exactly, the response, I believe, on the left would be you'd be a fool to not take this seriously. This is a very serious thing when a government impedes on free speech and can influence. And so, and that's trademark of fascism, to control narratives and things like that. So that's the selective outrage of what you're saying. And I just think about, like, some people have compared a lot of the social unrest to George Floyd being killed by Derek Chauvin. But I just imagine like a Fox News anchor during that time, just a day or a few days after George Floyd was killed, and there's a social unrest. And, Fox News guy jokingly says, those BLM Black Lives Matters folks trying to win something for their party, trying to paint Derek Chauvin as somebody. Really, he's not that. And trying to spin the narrative like so lightly about the tragedy of what happened. To our point earlier, you'd hope that no matter what side or tribe you're on, there's a common denominator, whether you call it truth or human decency and respect and honor and awareness of priorities and situations. Yes, encroachment of free speech is bad, but I won't be up in arms about it until I am 100% convinced that is this overreach of power. It could be very, very well, in which I believe it very well could be both, and that there was some FCC influence that said, hey man, we need to do some remedial review of what's going on. And then later, but is it correlative or is it causation? The whole idea of it just correlated, or is there a real direct cause? I'm not convinced of the direct causation because, like you said, Trump would have canceled Jimmy Kimmel a long time ago if he had that power or whatever. The words themselves are what people should be disturbed by. Jimmy Kimmel's words. And I'm becoming like so disillusioned by these heroes that I grew up loving. Like, Obama was a hero of mine. Conan O'Brien was a hero of mine.
Wait, Conan O'Brien said something?
Yeah,
He did?
right. He was one of those guys that are in my pantheon of like comedic greats because he had such great human sensibility
Yeah.
about things.
I haven't seen Conan O'Brien's response
But
to the
all he
matter.
said, I mean, I'm gonna paraphrase, but he mentioned something about if the administration or if he alluded to a promise of future threats from the administration if the administration gets criticized and that those threats could cancel more people. And he says, like, essentially that everybody in America, whether you're left, right, center, should find that disturbing. If you have a conscience or something like that, if anyone with a conscience should see that.
Yeah.
And even though everything what you said, Conan, true, very sensible, you're a Harvard grad, I get where that's coming from because of the encroachment of free speech. But I am still so disturbed. My conscience is still so disturbed by what the fuck Jimmy said. Like, how's that
excusable?
How's that excuse? If a Fox News person said Derek Chauvin was just this, and that, or try to paint Black Lives Matter or whatever in such a way, or paint George Floyd in such a way, I guarantee you that guy would be canceled, that host who made those jokes. And none of these folks, your Conans of the world, none of Jon Stewart's of the world, another idol of mine that I always looked up to, that was just this comedic, sensible guy, none of those guys would have called encroachment on free speech. I promise you that. In that world where a TV host says something's just ridiculous, and again, you have to look at things in context. During a time of such social unrest right now, you're going to pour gasoline on the fire to say that this person, Tyler Robinson, was actually not have anything to do with the left. They're trying to make it look
MAGA was
when
hiding
it's
him.
painfully obvious
Yeah.
that there's no evidence to support that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about the human decency and the toxicity of the situation. Sometimes perhaps you supersede whether or not there's a real encroachment of the First Amendment here. Because encroachment of the First Amendment is important.
Yeah.
But how is humanity, in a certain regard of people, not seeing how disgusting that is? Jimmy also said, man, Trump, this is not how an adult grieves a friend. This is how a 4-year-old grieves their dead goldfish. And if that doesn't reverberate with you and make you feel like that's the most disgusting shit I've ever heard, if that doesn't make you feel disgusted, then there's something fucking wrong with a lot of these folks then.
Yeah.
And I think there's not necessarily wrong that they're immoral. They're just so fucking out of touch.
Yeah.
They don't see the poisonous words that are driving this divide in families and households. They're probably just in their world with their properly socialized folk of their ilk, and looking at each other and thinking about the narratives that look right. And it looks so fascist-like for Trump to impose and cancel these people. This is not a democracy because it not only fits a narrative, it looks good. And
Yeah.
have you not seen the disturbing nature of the words, though? And I get it. Like, I don't know where Jimmy's at in his mindset, Jimmy Kimmel or whatever, what the fuck led you to that. But it's kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
And I promise you, no one would have batted an eye if someone was fired over making jokes about Derek Chauvin, George Floyd during that era, and what if someone belittled George Floyd like, well, George Floyd's just another black guy in North Side Minneapolis, where we used to live. He's just another black guy in North Minneapolis, and Black Lives Matter is painting him like he's a martyr or whatever. That guy would have been canceled instantly. No one would have said shit. And so that's my problem. Now, I don't believe in that. I think it's a tragedy. I think Derek Chauvin, what the fuck, he was culpable with a lot of shit. And George Floyd wasn't wasn't this leader of a movement. He is a guy,
Just
black
a
guy
human.
in our community who's trying to make it and maybe has made bad choices in his life, but also made some other good choices to mentor people in his community. That's who he was. But if someone tried to shit on it, they would be canceled instantly. And that's the double standard and the obsession control of the narrative that has driven me sometimes crazy to try to root out truth behind some claims.
Yeah.
I was outraged when I saw what was very convincing words of Charlie Kirk, where he says the thing about like these black folks are taking white people's jobs. Look at, Michelle Obama, blah, blah, blah. In and of itself, that's emotionally provoking. That's emotional. Like, damn, Charlie Kirk, you really said that? But then all you need to do is take 1 second to look at the entire context of what was said and realize,
It's totally false.
That's not what he said. He's actually making a very good point. I get it.
Yeah.
But this is the hate epidemic going on right now. That's very concerning.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes limited or have to check myself on what I say, even in this small little meager outlet here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big question that arises is at what level of responsibility do we as individuals and as a society take that in regards to the consequences of the things that we say, even if they're really, really shitty? Do we need Big Brother, like government, to dictate speech? Of course, we don't want that. That's just against our first,
that would be fascist
amendment.
Yeah,
that would be
that
absolutely
would be fascist.
Absolutely,
I would agree with that.
So then, how do we level the playing field where there's more accountability to the shitty things that people say? And when I say shitty things, it's not just your opinion or you can have your opinion in whatever way you want. But I'm saying even things like absolute lies, blatant lies, knowingly lies, or phrases and statements that intentionally are there to incite, violence and emotions and provoke, the worst things in different societies, being how sensitive our world is right now, So what would be the proper way to control that, to dictate exactly how we can minimize that and hold people accountable for the shit that they say? I mean, the free markets, one way you look at it, the free markets would say, well, Jimmy Kimmel wants to say shitty things. Well, it's reflective on his audience then. And pretty soon, a lot of people are going to be like, you know what? That was really horrible. We're going to stop watching this shit. And that's kind of what happened too, because
that's actually what's been happening.
That's what's happening. His ratings have been dropping lower and lower and lower. It's struggling at the same time. All the late night TV shows have been struggling.
Yeah.
Mainstream media, regardless of news and where you get your news from, has lost almost all of its credibility. They're dinosaur in this new world of information and technology. And again, your truth and credibility is the currency of getting people to pay attention to you. So maybe to a sense that's one way.
Yeah.
But is that in another way just the sense of another process of cancel culture? Is that do we want to go down that road of cancel culture again with like the Me Too movement or whatever movement that comes through and says, hey, you don't believe how I feel, or you don't recognize a certain way of my beliefs, so we're all gonna group together and cancel your livelihood because of some shit that you said or something like that? Or is it kind of like, no, that's actually like the best way to attack it is to cancel someone based on shit that they said or did, the one thing I hated about cancel culture was they would take shit from what someone would say 20 years ago.
That's the difference.
They'll pull that shit from like, man, I said that when I was like 16 years old, and be like, yeah, you said that a long time ago, but you still said it. So we're canceling you now, and you're just no longer, we're going to deplatform you in every single possible way, and that's really stupid. But then how do we prevent that from happening if we go down the road of just this, let capitalism and let viewership and let people make their decisions on exactly who they want to subscribe to? Because again, even the most shittiest people have really come up the rankings to get
followings and
their voices are really being magnified because they want to be, very controversial. They want to say the shitty things. Maybe what was going through Jimmy Kimmel's head when he said those things is, if I say these things, it'll be controversial. It'll draw
be
eyes.
A jolt in the ratings. It'll be a jolt in the conversation.
Exactly. And we live in a society where we reward those things.
That's all. Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, there's all of those different factions that like all come into play. Like I absolutely think everything. Well, it doesn't even surprise me anymore, the shit that comes out of Jimmy Kimmel's mouth, and how insensitive it is. But, everybody plays that game now,
Sure.
On late night. You're kind of just just used to it, you know, and I just stopped watching, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
and a lot of people followed suit, and that's why.
Yeah.
I don't look at the numbers, but I keep hearing that these icons of the late night, that limelight, that platform was golden. The Johnny Carsons, the historical figures that stood on the stage. I can't believe it. Like, I'm surprised that platform is dying. It's like.
not only that, but like the product that they're coming out with is not even good anymore. It's not even funny anymore. I mean, I guess to some people, maybe if you're just a very hardcore left-leaning liberal or something like that on the fringe or something, and you really appreciate a good hard joke against Trump or something like that, maybe I can get a kick out of you, you know. But you're finding that to be less and less, relevant. Again, you got to remember that Trump won the last election, meaning the majority of the U.S., at least those who voted, are leaning towards a more, I'd say, MAGA conservative faction belief base, which means that you're kind of isolating an entire population of the U.S. in regards to viewership, and then it's going to become less and less, So again, maybe that's why they're struggling so hard, but also at the same time, I would imagine, and again, there's probably plenty of liberals out there who watch that shit and feel like that was disgusting, that was distasteful.
Absolutely.
And when they see it, they're gonna go like, why do I watch this shit? Like, I'm turning the shit off, like there's nothing funny or tasteful in any of the things that you said and any things that you joked about at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Because they may hate Trump just as much, but they also heard that and said, what? That's kind of messed up. Like, read the room. You have a sense of touch with society right now.
But then they'll jump on Facebook or X and then they'll read, oh, Jimmy Kimmel's getting canceled. And then they'll go, oh, no, back on the team again, and just kind of just wipes the entire thing of everything away. It's just
of what he actually said.
So it kind of goes back and forth. And for me, the phenomenon for me is I've always wondered, particularly in politics, why and how certain issues or topics become so mainstream. Like this entire Jimmy Kimmel thing, literally within a week, became the headline news and the talk of the town everywhere, in every single corner and space of the internet. Whether if it's on mainstream TV right now, every single celebrity coining their term. Like, how does that just suddenly become literally the center focus of conversation, especially after someone just died, a prominent person just died and was murdered. They didn't just die, but they were murdered in cold blood. And literally a week later, this becomes this centralized conversation. And like, again, I go back to saying it was a PR stunt that was easily pulled to just change the narrative back into this direction to say, oh no, we're the victims. We're on the left. We're the victims. They're trying to stop us from freedom of speech and we'll stop all that. And now that's what the conversation looks like because you got all these different celebrities and you got all these different big names talking about it. How does that come to be? Like, who... I mean, obviously, it comes from a team of very good PR specialists.
Propagandist.
But it's almost like, did they send a memo to every single influencer? Did they... Because for me, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't feel organic. Because I've seen this playbook happen over and over and over again. Regardless of what it was. It could be... Oh no, they're locking children in cages. That was one of the ones that really opened my eyes to the playbook. It was like people were crying. Jimmy Kimmel was one of the ones on TV crying like about that. Like
locking.
Like, were those real tears or those crocodile tears? Like, I don't know. Like, it was just all part of a playbook, and it's just like right on cue. Every person has a voice about it, and they're so unified in that messaging too as well. It's like they're so good at just making sure all right, everybody, let's talk about this and let's send this out to everybody who wants to be a part of it. I don't know. It doesn't feel organic at all because nothing moves at this pace. Nothing. I don't know how that gets headlined so quickly after someone like Charlie Kirk just was brutally murdered. For me, it just feels, I don't know. Like it's all set up.
It's set up, and it's a reflection of the society that's consuming this stuff. The attention, how have human beings changed? How has their brain chemistry changed with the new era of how they get their information, their news? We're talking about this represent, but then we also reflect back on our own feed that was fed to us too as well. So we have to guard against those biases. But humanity, we are in a state where our attention is the worst it's ever been.
That's
headliners headliners are all that matters.
Yeah.
It takes work and critical thinking to want to uncover more behind what's going on. And that's just too much work. I'm already on a side, so I need more evidence, confirmation bias to feed into that.
Yeah.
More evidence that'll just be essentially confirmation bias. I argue that it's more than confirmation bias. It's very much what I would coin hate bias. And all that essentially means is if you are guilty of confirmation bias, you're taking a theory or a belief or a side on something, and then you're only going to look for, or you'll only notice things that validate what it is, and you're going to be blind towards other factors that could be relevant. But it's kind of like a passive thing where I'm discovering, or I'm seeing the things that validate my shit, and I don't care about anything else. Hate bias is a proactive, I'm not discovering reasons, I'm looking for reasons
Yeah.
to continue to bolster my stance. And I'm also looking for reasons to hate the other side too.
To paint them and make them look like the complete monster that you want them to be.
And that charge, that nuance is different than confirmation bias, because I'm of a belief that hate is also a disease. It's a seed that spreads. So you can't sit still. So even if no new information's flowing in, even if we go through a week of there's no big headliners, nothing's happening in the world,
Yeah.
you can't sit still. You need to go out and conjure the information. You need to go out and shape the narrative. Otherwise, the narrative might slip away from you.
Yeah.
And so confirmation bias is sort of apathetic, but I'm only going to see the things that validate me. Hate bias right now is rampant. It's rampant and scary. It won't sit still.
And it's addictive.
And it's addictive. It's convenient. It's right on our phones. Dealing with the hate bias almost makes you hateful too. And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to guard against some of the hateful things I'm seeing and making me not hate as much back against it. Like that's the disease of it and what's going on, because it's not just these political people on left and right that you can either love or hate. These are people in our own communities now.
Yeah.
That we need to respect and love and hear out. It's hard not to feel a sense of hate when you're receiving hate for also just demonstrating a point about something and wanting to hate either the contrived nature of their messaging, the forced obsession for the narrative control. Like I hate narrative control. I hate because it reminds me of, like, their petulance reminds me of like my kids who are 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, 3 to 5 years old, who say, how come they get that and we didn't get that? And how come my brother did this? And the whiniest petulance and always wanting to be on the front page. How come Jimmy was canceled and all this stuff? Now you guys are feeling the thrash of cancel culture and everything. And the hate bias is running deep. It's a hate epidemic. And it's scary because it's in your communities now.
Yeah.
And it's also scary because you can't envision what would be the solution than to sort of, make sense of shared meaning between contrasting opinions and still be in community with each other. Because that's why my idols of the past, the Barack Obamas, who said, there's no red states, there's no left states, there's the United States of America. And that struck me deep.
Yeah.
You got to reach across the aisle, blah, blah, blah. Great words. Optics look incredible. Your composure and articulation is just spot on, and it's inspired a lot of belief. And there's some real conviction to that when he was giving it. When maybe he was jaded throughout the process, and now. And I'm not saying that Obama's doing anything particularly bad or anything. You can unpack that in every way you want, but it's just it's now the discovery of all these narratives that seemingly are just a byproduct of their control, their labeling, their categorizing. Even all the DEI stuff is an implementation of strict labelings of people to organize them in such a way. We don't see enough blacks or minorities in this pool. Affirmative action corrects everything because we need to label things. We need a L, a GBTQ, blah, and so on, and so on, and so on. Because we need categorizations for everything, because it makes it easier to control, manipulate, funnel, isolate, and then attack as well.
It's divide and conquer. That's always been their strategy playbook. It's always been for the longest time. And the way I look at it, like I've always said and felt like, especially in the past decade, that the biggest disease on our country right now is this idea of tribalism. It's this idea of not having any kind of self-identity anymore, where we all have to feel like we're part of a team, and it becomes a team effort, and then you fall into that box of whatever their beliefs are. It's gotten to the point that there are a lot of people in my lives that, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't want to know what their political leaning side. I don't, because if they do, then I might have a bias against that. I might start to think them or see them in a particular light, and I don't want them knowing who I am or what I believe or who I voted for, because I don't want them to pass judgment on me. Because suddenly, all of a sudden, they're like, "Kong, man, he's a great guy. He's cool as hell, man. Oh, what? You're this? Oh,
he's a Trumpster.
He's a Trumpster,
or he's this, or whatever."
He voted for Kamala. All of a sudden, you get this idea of who they are. Oh, he must think that. He must believe that. And that's the whole idea of that tribalism that burns so deep now. And that's the disease. They don't see people as individuals. We don't see each other as individuals with free thinking thoughts and minds who can bring logic or, even your own personal values and beliefs and morals into the equation anymore, and how you were raised and what you see as virtue and goodness in life and in yourself. They see someone who just believes what they believe because that's what their side believes.
Because that's what they're sort of told to believe.
Yep.
They're told to have you're not supposed to just believe certain facts that we give you. You're supposed to adopt our attitudes about things too.
Yep.
You have to believe that. Yeah.
And what that leads down the road is people not being able to have real conversations, the tough conversations that like even Charlie Kirk would have with a lot of people on the other side or within his own group. Like that doesn't get brought up or brought to the table because we're so scared now to be offensive to one another. So you're either on the side of like, fuck the other side, like this is the reason you're the most vocal person. You're saying shitty words and you don't even care. Or you're on the side of like, just leave me alone. I don't even want to know. I don't want to say
anything to do with this.
Yeah, because if I say something, you guys might get mad at me and I don't want to offend you guys. And then those conversations don't happen either. Yeah. So it happens on every single side, and that's kind of the challenge that we're kind of in. I mean, it's to the point where it's just like, if we stop demonizing one another and we can actually have real conversations where you can actually really truly see each other's point of view without characterizing that person as an individual, then let's talk on the particular subject matter, the policies, and let's not attack the character of the person that you're talking to. Can we get to the truth on certain ideas? Because again, every single side brings great value and ideas to the table. If we all just kind of figured it out and are able to listen to one another, but we can't because of that sensitivity that goes around. And I think the side that's being the most loudest, the fringe part of each side is the one actually driving that fear in the middle of people who are just independent. I didn't vote for Trump or Kamala. I'm not left or right. I'm just trying to survive and live my life,
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me.
But now it's like, hey, come into this. I'm going to bring you on my side. Hear me out, And then
it's not just, I'm sorry.
No,
but it's not just hear me out because I have a good reason. Hear me out because the sky is falling. Because if by doing nothing, you have no idea the state of affairs right now. We're under a certain regime right now. We're under 1930s Germany. You guys have a veil. You guys have something blinding you. I need to help you. You're either for us or against us, or you're either for democracy or against democracy, and there's this again, these are all calculated, intentionally designed, emotionally provocative messages to drive that. What I've understood in my, meager research or my humble research that I would look into both sides of what they're fighting for, what I'm discovering is not only is that the left is hyper-reactive, it's that if forced to unpack the things behind the belief, there's a lot of difficulty there.
Yeah.
Because you're presented the case like Trump is a fascist. So then if you have to unpack that, well, there's this, there's that. There's some things that point to that direction, like kids being snatched up off the streets. These are actual words being used in the rhetoric of what's happening, why we're under 1930s Germany, because people being snatched up from the streets, from hospitals and schools. It sounds scary. You just actually look at the facts, or I'm not going to say facts because you're going to be, what facts are you using? But if you look at just real conversation, let's say from, is it Tom Hallman, right? Who is the ICE director.
Yeah.
He just tells it how it is.
Yeah.
No, those are made of, no one's getting snatched up off the streets. No one's, and you can unpack that in many ways, but the left has difficulty unpacking certain things. And a lot of it is emotional hit, not a lot of substantive backing, but the emotional hit's good enough. There's countless examples like the Doge, the reduction of government, blah, blah, blah. They're taking your money and giving it to their billionaire friends. Man, is that so emotionally provoking. That would piss me off too. That's just like, what?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like every single man, you're either for democracy or you're against democracy. That's emotionally provoking. That's like, I better choose. Of course I want to be for democracy. So, like if this is happening. And this is not saying that the right has all their shit together or that they came in, but at least the right is having conversations to have some sort of some shared meaning behind what's going on.
Yeah.
There's this selective blindedness in terms of what had happened in the 4 years leading up to Trump's campaign.
Yeah.
It's a selective ignorance of everything was fine. Trump's coming in and just tearing shit apart.
Yeah.
There's a strip of context there. And so when ICE comes to take away criminals who are illegal, as well as the people around them that may not be criminals, but they're still legal. Look at the context of where we're coming from.
Exactly.
This proliferation and influx of illegal immigrants, open borders, like what the fuck? Anything happens during Biden's administration.
Yeah, there was like record-breaking people illegally crossing over to the tune of like, no one even knows the number. Some people are saying 9 million to 20 million to who knows, God knows what. And a lot of these people are absolutely unvetted. We don't know. A lot of them identified as gangsters, as violent offenders that have come in from different prison cells from different countries that have flooded our streets. Like, we can't pretend that thing just didn't happen.
Absolutely.
Like, if that never happened and it was just like, hey, like the influx of people coming into the country legally or not illegally was just pretty normal. It was just fine. It was like, it was a no issue. And then Trump came in and had this entire ICE thing and Tom Hallman and they were snatching people off the streets. I too would be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You can't just go on snatching people off the streets. But it's a response, it's a direct response to some crazy shit that happened over the past 4 years of an influx of people coming in illegally. And there's a sense of danger that's on the streets. There were apartment buildings being held up by gang members completely that aren't even U.S. citizens. They're here illegally. That's a complete invasion. And for me, it's like, what is the correct response? I don't know. Is it snatching everybody and anybody off the street who isn't looking particularly white or whatever? Like, no, I don't think that's the absolute answer, but there are some reasonable like actions that need to be taking place, and we don't know, like I don't believe that that's happening, and if it is happening in those case scenarios, then let's address those and let's correct
there's probably
those.
so much more to unpack behind that. Because that's just the headliner. ICE snatches children, separates families away from. And on first blush, that's like, damn, that's messed up. But when you just look into the what had happened, how it was rolled out in certain things, you have to say, oh, I guess that does make sense. Like I guess that does make sense that certain things like that happen. But yeah, you're right. It's a selective ignorance of the context because it doesn't fit the narrative. Because the great narrative is to compare ICE to swastika or the Nazi regime, those on the streets that were just, rounding up Jews, and that comparison, it's a perfect poetry of like, look what's happening, the fascism and everything. It's not that whoever's on the left can't have a response to the methodology of what's taking place and how ICE is doing it. You can have a criticism of that. Absolutely.
It needs it. Yeah.
And it requires it. Every little presidential initiative, it all needs to be criticized in every way to have it. You're happy to criticize it. but don't selectively try to paint pictures in a certain way or narrative just to fit your agenda.
Yeah.
Because no one cried foul when Barack Obama, who appointed the same person, Tan Hallman, to lead these same initiatives, who then deported illegal immigrants at a record pace. No one invoked Nazi Germany during that time. Not a single person invoked Nazi Germany. And if you really take a deep dive into this, the interconnected of the impact, the population numbers, the illegal immigrant numbers, it tells the story that it makes sense that there was a period of time. I wasn't against what Barack Obama did during that time too, because the influx of the numbers was going up, whatever it was. So then that's why he did the initiative to do that. But it's happening again now, and now we're living in Nazi Germany. And that's the problem I am having, is that it's not that you're on this side and I'm on this side. It's that people are so selective with the narrative because they need to energize and galvanize their troops.
Yeah.
They need to energize and to paint this narrative as if these are the heroes. These are the champions of overturning a dictatorship government. It's very dangerous. And that's why bullets are being engraved with fascism on it, or like, it's extremely dangerous and irresponsible. And it's driven me to then look into the actual words being used by people, leadership in government, who have outright said, we need more agitation. We need more people to go out there and protest. And none of them has said do it violently, but just protest, continually get out there and do that, because we are in Nazi Germany. I'll let you guys decide what protest means, but we need to go out there and protest.
Some of them actually, like, literally said, punch him in the face. You know? Some of them have actually asked for violence, and I don't know exactly at what level that means, you know? But going back, like, me, the way I look at it, it's not even so much about the subject matter issues. If there's an injustice on one, there's an injustice on all. And let's all take a look at and really unpack what had happened and figure out exactly the details of it and figure out the best way to move forward. Whether if that's through new initiative and new policy, or if that's just something that, you know, society as a whole needs to shun. But I don't even think it's gone to that level anymore. It's gone to an area where it's not even about that. It's about winning. It's about winning. It's like my team needs to win, because when my team was in office, I don't give a shit. They could do whatever the fuck they want, you know? Inflation could go to hell and people could invade the country and we can just blow money away and I don't even care. Everything is perfectly fine. The house is on fire, but it's perfectly fine. But if my team loses... If my team loses, God forbid, then the whole sky is falling. And that's what it's come down to. And again, I say that in a way where it's like, oh... You know, like I'm attacking the left for this. The right does it too. And MAGA does it too. Just not on the level as the left. The left just takes it a whole new level. Like they're so butthurt that they lost again, Trump. Oh my God, you know, that they can't let it go. They can't accept the idea that Trump won again and he's in president. You know, and I mean, he's going to be gone in another 3 years. And I'll be honest, Trump, the way he's going at it and the way he's looking, he's getting old real fast too as well. So I don't even... aging him a lot. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I don't even think he's going to make it to the end of his term. That's my bold prediction. I think in about a year or two, like he's going to be just like Biden. Like an old man.
Like we won't see him anymore. He'll have some sort of thing, sign all his decrees and whatnot.
Yeah, you know, and so, but then... That's what it comes down to. And now they have to figure out, oh, how can we win midterms? How can we figure out who we're going to line up to beat that entire? Because if it ain't Trump, it's going to be, you know, Vance next, you know, and it's going to be whatever. And we don't want to do. They're just, it's not even about the righteousness and goodness of the overall goodness of the society. It's really just about my team needs to win. Yeah. And we need to conquer. It's just power. Everything that comes out of that, their mouths, everything that gets addressed is the sense of like, oh, we need more power. We just only care about winning. And this is the idea that the best and most effective way to do that is to paint ourselves as victims of some kind.
We have to create the context that this is not a normal state of affairs. We are under the regime of a dictator who's very, very ego-driven, power-hungry, and the evidence is everywhere. People are getting snatched up off the Streets. He's taking your money, giving it to his billionaire friends. He's He's silencing people just like a fascist would. He's canceled people who are speaking out and criticizing the administration. Like, how do you not see it? I know all the talking points, but they're all echo chambers, because if you have to unpack those things, and not a lot of people can actually unpack what's behind a lot of those statements, because it's not completely false, but don't try to pretend like context doesn't matter. You know? That's what pisses me off about the whole illegal immigration and or that conversation today, is you're pretending as if what the fuck Biden didn't happen. You're pretending as if like this record pace of influx of illegal immigrants, this has nothing to do with hating foreign people, xenophobia. My parents came from Laos.
Yeah, we're descendants.
This has nothing to do with that. Yeah. This just has to do with the common sense problem of how do you maintain an economy that has to account for specific head count. How do you maintain things with the levers that get changed when you add a huge influx of people? But then you discover things like, well, you know, one side of the aisle was funding their hotel stays and giving them the work visas, and then you have to say, what the fuck, man? Like, there's more nefarious things. But anyways, that's sort of the path. Don't be selective with the context, and that's just like how they painted Charlie Kirk. He's a racist because they selected the context. And you know what I also hate when they do is they select something egregious, like Charlie Kirk believes, you know, black people are stealing white people's jobs, and blah blah blah. And they always follow it up with, let that sink in. Let that sink in. Yeah. I've heard politicians on the left will say things like that. Let that sink in. But whatever preceded let that sink in was a very emotionally charged statement that
completely out of context.
Completely out of context.
Didn't make no sense at all.
Intentionally out of, not by accident it was out of context. It was intentionally out of context to provoke the response, to rally the troops. And it was only like more recently, like making sense of all this. It's a little more recently that hit me. Oh yeah, the factor, midterms. That's all, like maybe that's what that's as, it boils down to that the mundane process of midterms, meaning like that's all it is. There isn't really something else at work. It's just that we need to win the midterms, because winning the midterms mean you can tame that fascist in the White House. We have to win the midterms at any cost. We need to rally. It's your prerogative to want to win it, but win it by, tell me, what are your values? Have a conversation that's not scripted with common folk like me or whoever, not on some platform that's already incredibly biased in a certain way or whatever, that's scripted. Have a conversation with people about, well, what is it that we're gonna, if you dismantle fascism or whatever, well, what's life gonna look like?
Or what are you offering outside of demonizing Trump and MAGA? You know, like, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to know that. I mean, and again, I hear it. Some things, you know, some of the progressive movements may say something like, you know, things like universal health care or something like that. Sure. And those are completely legitimate to bring to the table, to have real conversations, to really dig and unpack and stuff like that. But that's not what the leaders are saying. No. You know, like Bernie Sanders have been screaming this from, you know, the top of the roof for the longest time. That's not what they want as their leader. They don't care about their real emotions and their agenda. Like, and where they're
Bernie Sanders, man.
Throw that guy out of there. You know, we're looking for the winner. Yeah. Let's bring in Gavin Newsom. He kind of looks good.
Who's going to win for us?
Yeah. He can talk smooth, you know, and Gavin Newsom's, you know, you see him out there in the field, and he's you know, petitioning himself to be that role. You know, he's trying to, you know, play that role and talk that high talk and everything and be really smooth. And you see his hand movements and he's trying to just audition himself. That's all it is. He's trying to put himself in that role. And
everybody's auditioning. Cory Booker's been auditioning a lot.
AOC just announced her run for presidency coming up. You know, so
you know who knows? J.B. Pritzker.
Oh, I don't.
You know what's fascinating is that, again, we don't follow the politics that much. Well, now we're forced to, because of everything going on. And the interconnected theme throughout the conversations all 2025 is everything we're talking about over the last hour. Is this who's controlling the narrative? It's all that. J.B. Pritzker. It's strange that not that name, it doesn't resonate or come up. And I was asking Same Boy this too, and it didn't. But the more I just unpacked who he was, he's that secret dark horse that is really the antithesis of Trump, who's championing a cause because he's not afraid to say bold things, but he's the antithesis of Trump, meaning he can match the boldness, but in the most articulate, sensible way. He's not just like Trump, who may just say things off the cuff. Everything is designed, and he's very articulate, very sensible, very just like, and in his budget speech, I believe back in February, a State of the State Union address to and a budget, he ended off the speech, and this is February, so think about back in time. He ended off the address invoking the specter of Nazism in what's happening. And he even says it himself, say, I don't invoke the specter of Nazism lightly, but let me go off and just do it now. And so then he went on this long tirade about how he would know best because he was behind building a Holocaust museum, and that's great work and stuff. But he says it in such a way where I've talked to the survivors of the Holocaust, and I essentially know kind of what unfolded day by day in 1930s. Yeah. And what's happening is what's happening today. So I would know best. So he does all the marks of a very good, influential speech.
So he's planting those seeds.
He's planting the seeds. So not only is he establishing his credibility to say such claims, he's establishing that credibility. And I'm not taking that credibility away. He might have the best credibility. But there's just this selective ignorance of what are all the other things that happened in 1930s that doesn't fit your narrative that today is a 1930s Nazi fascism regime. Yeah. Like, is it convenient to forget that Adolf Hitler was chancellor at the time, the leader died, and he also killed off all of his opponents in one night and took power for himself without an actual democratic election? Like, those things matter. If you're saying that we're in an anti-democratic time, just like that, well, Trump is the result of democracy in the most convincing way, where not just edging the population or the popular vote and winning. And I don't know, landslide is a term that may be relevant, but I don't know how much landslide, but it was a convincing win for bringing around a lot of independents like myself who couldn't make sense of the last 4 years, who looked at what was going on the left side, that their talking points were just stuff that looked like the optics. And even though Trump, his demeanor, composure, and everything wasn't something that resonated with me my whole life, at least he's talking about real points of life in society. And he won by that democratic result. Yeah. And now today we're being, forced a narrative that this is an anti-democratic United States that we're living in, just like in 1930s. So we have to rise up against this fascism, because when children get snatched up off the streets, it has that vision of, the Gestapo and people. It's all intentionally designed. I spent the time, and I'm not taking him out of context, meaning I spent the time and sat through his long entire speech. Yeah. I heard him talk about his whole budget process and everything and all that shit like that. And he's making cuts and stuff, and he's doing his thing, which is fine. He's the governor of Chicago, of Illinois. Oh. He's the governor of Illinois. He reminds me of Kevin Arnold's dad, Wonder Years. He's just like Kevin Arnold, like the way he talks and everything. But I actually sat through it so I can take it in its full context. Yeah. And then he gave a speech, I think it was in March. It was, again, I don't follow all the specifics, but it's like a Democratic luncheon or some sort of party in New Hampshire, I believe, where that's sort of historically the place where you audition, the place. And he had a very resounding speech, galvanize the troops, and again, establish the specter of that we are living in a society that's being oppressed by a fascist regime. And we need to stand up. And he says very bold things like, if it sounds like I don't like Trump, if it sounds like I'm contemptuous, it's because I am. And you should be too. That's why I say that the left, the echo chambers, that they're told what to believe, and they have to adopt attitudes. But when it's time to unpack those things, in a meaningful dialogue, it's a struggle. It's like a no, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. He said in that speech, what did he say? He said, I don't obey a king. I don't intend to bend my knee to a king. And then I thought, well, that's where the no kings sort
That's
of
where it came from.
resounding, because I didn't know what do you mean by no kings? I know there was a protest. I know and everybody has a right to protest, but what was the theme? Like no kings. I didn't know where it came from.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it exactly came from that, but I'm pretty sure it came from that. Because what had happened is there's parts of that then get spread like the masses, and that truth, that seed, the inception of that specter, that reality is now a reality because our phones and our algorithms have fed us that no kings. He says in that speech, I have never done this. I don't ever do this, but I'm calling for action. I'm calling for people to protest.
Yeah.
Now, he never incited anyone to do violence. Because he's very articulate. He knows what he's saying. He knows all of his words are so calculated.
Yeah.
So that he's implanting a message without ever being held accountable to saying something so blatantly wrong, like go out there and punch someone in the face. He's never said that.
Yeah.
Today he's being questioned. My understanding is that, especially in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's killing, that did you call Trump a Nazi and everything? He's like, no, I never called Trump a Nazi and everything. And when you look at it, it's actually true. He never called him verbatim, technically.
Specifically, yeah.
But you already did the inception already.
Yeah.
You've already
Painted
established a sense of urgency here. And that's why there's such an emotionally riled up group of people who can't talk with their family members about things, about unpacking some of those things. He says himself that, I'm not using this platform to sort of audition I'm only doing this as an obligation to my job, which is that we need to save our society, our country from dictatorship.
Yeah.
That the democratic institution is being dismantled in front of our very own eyes. And if we do nothing about it, the country we love is... Those are very emotionally provocative words, but it's like the selective material for your memory. You don't recall that Germany was taken over by Adolf Hitler just by his own rule, by his own power, by killing people off, by, there may be some pattern similarity, but dude, like, come on. Like, you're so articulate, you're so composed. This wasn't a natural... This didn't come into you organically, like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried about this. This is happening. This was so by design and by...
The question is, do you really believe that? Is that something that you truly believe in your whole heart of hearts? And that's the mission that you've been set forth upon, to be the Paul Revere of announcing and making sure that people are aware and they understand
the
that
circumstances.
Yeah, the circumstance that that fascism has now hit our borders, in America, and it's taken over, and it's led by Donald J. Trump, and there's this fear of making sure that this gets stopped at all, at all corners, and before it becomes too late and too far for us to come back from it, Like, does he really truly believe that in his heart?
And the scary thing about the manipulation of lies and the manipulation of narratives is that when you become so good at it, you don't even know how to answer that question. Do I actually believe this? Because it's embedded your soul so much that your identity, the weight of everything, there's no real voice of conviction. There's too much duplicity in your heart now to really, because you might say you believe it because ultimately, I'm not sure if I believe today is 1930s Germany, but I ultimately believe Trump is a fascist, so I have to paint that picture. Who knows what you believe in your heart now? But it's also like, and you can believe whatever you want, but know the accountability of your words and what's happening. Yeah. Is it causation or correlation? Did he paint the picture and that caused some people to engrave fascism and the whole Antifa movement, to get radical? Or is it just a correlation? That's the life and the murkiness that we live in. Yeah. But the things that counter the murkiness are, again, we keep going back to this, our dialogue. The only person that I can think of that at least wanted to have conversations with people and unpack those things was killed off in Charlie Kirk, was brutally killed off in Charlie Kirk. And that's where I see the tragedy is in his death too. The tragedy number one is who he is as his family. Again, I don't know much. I didn't follow that much of Charlie Kirk. I wasn't right-leaning and using his material to fuel anything. But all I knew was that he was a big supporter of Trump. and that he had certain values and he was very effective in his methodology.
Yeah.
And that when he was at first hated on for doing what he's doing, now he's garnered a following. But the most important part, it doesn't matter who you were. What matters most was that, or it doesn't matter what you believed and how you did it. What matters to me that still tears me up was that you were a father stripped away so brutally in front of the eyes of your own children and your wife, who have to be tormented by that vision for the rest of their lives. That superhero dad is now a limp body in front of them. And that's the humanity that I think that I was hoping that all of us could come together and say, man, like, let's
stop. It
should be the awakening.
Too far.
But no, let's capitalize on this.
Yeah.
You know what? Whoever killed them, that was probably their side anyways, you know? And they're trying to put it on, the left, that Tyler Robinson. And that's where it drives you insane.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't seeing the reality of it. And I'm not trying to glorify Charlie Kirk's death is more important than Melissa Hortman or et cetera, et cetera. I'm not trying to do that. But it comes down to just the basic common sense humanity.
And if Melissa Hortman, that tragedy happened here in town, if I saw people, right or left, laughing or making fun of it or saying that she deserved it, I'd fucking shun that the same exact way. That's horrible. That's disgusting. Like, I didn't see it though. To be honest, I'm not saying it didn't happen.
It's not you're being selectively blind to it.
Yeah.
It just, we live here.
Yeah.
We live here. If anybody would know, Edenbrook Golf Course is a few blocks from my... Yeah. I didn't see it. I didn't see anyone saying, well, she deserved it, or...
whether if that was online or anywhere else, or especially a comedian on national television. Can you imagine if like somebody on Fox News or just anybody out there, Jon Stewart, was like, Melissa Hortman, maybe she deserved it, was laughing and joking and making light of something that, horrible like that was happening. That would be so distasteful and so disgusting, For me, the way I look at it is it's like, all this left and right bickering of really, at the end of the day, just fighting to see who gets to have their champion, in office, who wins ultimately, and not really understanding what are we really winning anymore. We're becoming monsters just to win, and we're destroying everything that we hold truth and belief. Even the most simplest thing is as shunning, shunning a death and an assassination and knowing that morally that's wrong and disgusting, that we're losing that capability of our moral value just so our side can win
at all costs.
And when we get to that point, and then that's when it gets pretty sad and it gets pretty scary.
Because there's a bigger moral battle. The bigger moral battle is the battle for freedom and democracy. At least that's their side. Because that's the morality. We have to prioritize our morality. Sometimes they're in conflict with each other. But the most important moral divider or compass right now is that we overturn this regime of hate and fascism. So everything else falls under that. Everything else gets trumped by that. And so
I think what the U.S. needs right now, and the citizens, we need to take a cold, hard look at each other. Like really, really look at each other for who we really are. And we have to really start to open our eyes and realize that there are a lot of shit and a lot of bad things that happen. And particularly our government, that we have to start being honest with. And a lot of that truth is going to start coming out. Whether if that's operations within the CIA, whether if that was things that Doge uncovered, whether if that's 9/11, the Epstein files,
everything,
everything, even down to this Charlie Kirk assassination. Like, we still don't even know everything about it. Even down to Donald Trump's double assassination attempts, we still know nothing about it, And there's gonna be some real realities that's gonna come out, but we all have to, just as people, I'm not saying as a party or as an individual or anything, just people in general, we have to just really take a stop and really look at where we're at as a country, like, honestly. And I think when all this information is going to start spilling over, when a lot of this truth is going to start, releasing itself and coming to the surface, it's going to be a lot of shock value and factors that are going to be in there. And there's going to be a lot of debating and a lot of fighting and everything else there. But instead we stop like fighting each other and really open our eyes to see exactly what the hell is going on in the world right now. We really don't even know, you know, like I don't even know who's behind all of this stuff and all the narratives that are being created and why, you know, there's such a huge push for Trump or a huge push that's anti-Trump and why there's so many influencers that are involved and why this has come knocking at our door. Because what else is there? You know, at the end of the day, when you win or when you lose or whatever, what does that even mean at the end? I know that there are certain policies. I know that there's certain things that people's livelihoods may be affected at some point. And I know that there's a lot of things that's worth fighting for. But to become a monster in order to accomplish those things just so you can win. And again, even when you win, you don't even think or know if those things are ever be accomplished. I wanted the Epstein files to be released. Trump won. He's not releasing it. You know, it's not like I get my way just because my champion is sitting in office. You know, I still demand him to release it. And I'm not saying that he's intentionally hiding it. I have no idea exactly. I just don't know.
But truth has to be accountable to it being exposed, whether you're left or right. Whatever truth. And you have to check your own attitudes about what truth is and everything. But yeah.
But I think we're coming to a pivotal point also beyond just this spiritual awakening. But part of that is really coming in terms of being honest exactly what is happening within our country, our government. And I think a lot of truth teller, they're going to come out and we're going to start to see a lot of information, a lot of truth and a lot of, you know, again, misinformation or conspiracy theories, however you want to put it. But I think a lot of truth of that is going to start coming out. And I think we need to be ready for that kind of stuff instead of just fighting, you know, one another over completely pointless shit, you know,
over claims that either can't be proven one way or the other, or attitudes that should be adopted or should not be adopted. You're right that America, the turning point, the inflection point, whatever you want to call it, does have to look at itself in the mirror, because you can no longer not look at yourself in the mirror from a country's perspective with everything going on, not just in our country, but the rest of the world. The unrest in the whole world. So there's that. But I also exhort just people in families. If you feel like you're isolated or estranged from someone that you used to be cool with or love, or your sibling or a friend, because you're so gung-ho on certain things, there's a real nugget of truth to say, look at yourself in the mirror, not to say that you're wrong, but to say, is this worth it? To hold on to this now that my brother or my sister's dead to me now. Like, you're dead to me because I don't believe what you believe.
Yeah.
That's happening in society. Like, and the only remedy on both sides is cheesy as shit, but it's true, is that you have to still love on your neighbor. It boils down to that. How do you love again, or how do you because I'm convinced that there's an epidemic of hate. There's so much hate. It's palpable, whether it's in real conversation or online. And it won't rest. It's restless. If you expose hate to just facts that 100% of people believe this is empirical fact, they won't be accepting to the fact, or whatever that capital T truth is.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only thing that overturned like the darkness of that seed, the inception of hate, is to just live life together and love on each other. And that sounds cheesy and weird and kind of like, well, how do you even do that in conversation? But figure it out, because every situation is going to be its own. And that's what Charlie Kirk did. I'm convinced of that. He was very stubborn about his stance. He was very convicted about certain things, and he was unapologetic about it. And so people didn't like his methodology. People didn't like his brashness. But in everything that I've seen him say, when taken in a full context, he wanted to have dialogue, have shared space for meaning. Was he guilty of trying to win sometimes? Yeah, he was.
But that's the whole point.
But his conviction was true in terms of what he believed. He wasn't making up stuff.
It wasn't the idea to beat the opponent. It was the idea of showing his truth, and convincing his truth.
And I saw him love on so many people that were against him too, that he learned how to have meaningful connection with whether you're opposed against his ideas or not. And that's why that's why there are a lot of people who said, I knew Charlie Kirk and we didn't agree on a lot, but he was a damn good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. And that's the tragedy, I feel like, is that the solution to the epidemic, or at least a model of that solution, is just brutally ripped away from America. And so take that for whatever you want, but that's the fact of the matter. And because people don't know how to do it. I would respect a liberal politician, a left-leaning politician so much if they just had unscripted, real dialogue with common folk for an hour and entertain any thoughts or questions.
Be willing to be
talked
challenged.
and be willing to be challenged. And that don't bring up Trump or just talk about real values. That's impossible to find.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to find that. There's some Bernie Sanders material, and I see that, and he tries to do that. I see some of that, but they don't want. Your own left side don't want him to be your leader. But that's the state that we're in right now, and it's very sobering. And tomorrow is, I believe, Charlie Kirk's his funeral. I believe, and
was it his funeral? Because there've been nonstop events. Since, so I'm not sure exactly.
I could be wrong about that, but it's just that's my
his actual funeral.
That's sort of my eulogy to this person who I learned about 90% of what I learned from Charlie Kirk, what he's talking about after he died.
Yeah.
And it's very sad to come through this in a neutral perspective and find that a lot of people not only just shitting on him or celebrating that, those are just, I don't take those seriously, but people who will just continue to obsess and pull the narrative in a certain way. So that's why the whole Jimmy Kimmel shit, all that is, it's very sad. I'm very disillusioned by also these heroes, these very sensible people that I've looked up to as well.
It hurts. It hurts to see those things, because it feels like they also are playing the role or their part in selecting sides. Mm-hmm. To be intentionally blinded or willing to take that kind of stance without the feeling of them being really invested into exactly what that subject matter is. And at the end of the day, we're all not going to think exactly the same. Everybody has their own beliefs. Everybody has their own opinions. Again, I still believe in objective reality and objective truths, that those things do absolutely exist. If we acknowledge it and understand it, that come into that society, but people are going to still always have their opinions around those kind of things. But it is kind of shocking when it comes down to, some of the people that you've looked up to as heroes, as influencers and within your own lifetime, to see those kind of people kind of feel like they're not giving the most genuine particular take on certain, subject matters, and where it's kind of like, really? That's how it is.
You're just trying to win, man.
Yeah,
and if you can't win, then you resort to calling them something, a racist. Oh, you're just this then, or you're just...
Yeah. or like, again, it just comes down to even just, again, the selective outrage on certain things, like that's what drives me nuts, There are shitty and horrible things that happen in the whole world every day of every second, all the time. And we as a society have to select and pick and choose exactly where we want to be vocal about. And all of it should be vocalized. Everything should be brought up. But to have this idea to set a megaphone on certain issues and not others, or in light of, not because you're genuinely concerned about it, but only for the purpose of building on to support the narrative and the overarching idea that you want to get across, I think that's... Yeah. That's pointless. And
these are just all strategic plays, and it's sad that your positions on these things are reduced to really a strategic play. And it sounds very demeaning of what the left side might hold as valuable. Like, no, family values, families are being torn apart. I get that, but when you really look at it, there's so much of this is strategic play. I'll use Jimmy Kimmel as a joke, his own joke, to position it back on him. Yeah, is that a new low for the left side today when they're trying to use Jimmy Kimmel as sort of a martyr and to pin this on this tyrannical government, when really ABC was just covering their own asses. That's all that was happening. ABC. That's my sort of Jimmy Kimmel's joke back at him. It's sort of the same thing. It's like if you held that as valuable, well, I'm just gonna shit on it and diminish what's actually going on here or whatever, and say that your firing was just ABC covering their, or not firing, but your suspension was, it has nothing to do with this tyrannical government.
Yeah.
It's that ABC had to cover their asses, and the midterms are coming up. And what you said is only going to probably fire up the other side. So let's cancel what you had to say, because we're just doing damage control right now. Because maybe what you said, I was hoping, after I know all this, I had hoped that that show did air. I was hoping, because those types of things in this climate right now is probably the type of things to galvanize the right to even more so vote during the midterms. Yeah. So I could conjecture that this was a move from their own side to make sure Jimmy Kimmel's words didn't go out, because it would hurt them. So that's all it is. Don't try to blame this on Trump. That's exactly the joke, and whatever it is that Kimmel wanted a position on Tyler Robinson, the MAGA, and everything like that. It's so base. It's so disgusting. It's like, I don't know. Midterms coming up. They need to control the tyrant. So that makes a lot of sense for me, that everything is an obsession to control the how close these two nationwide incidences, Charlie Kirk, and then here in Minneapolis with the shootings at the Catholic school, they're too close to each other. They're too they're too vitriol driven. They're too they look so bad. But midterms are just in November. We need to overturn this narrative. That's all that is. It's all just a strategic play. People have lost a sense of humanity. What the hell's going on here anymore? And that's sad.
And like, if people were concerned about, freedom of speech and infringement of our First Amendment, I mean, you take a look at all the different things that have been canceled in the past, where was the outrage then? Like, I had this one, I found this list that this person had notated of all the other things that were just like canceled that never really got any kind of attention at all, literally.
The First Amendment wasn't invoked at all, in those cancellations.
I'll just read them off really quickly. Like Roseanne Barr, fired by ABC and Disney, and her hit show Roseanne canceled overnight in 2018 after one tweet. Gina Carano, fired from The Mandalorian. I don't know if you guys remember her.
The movie, but I don't know.
Mandalorian. For a social media post that didn't fit with the left's policy. She was dropped by the agency too. Megyn Kelly, she was fired by NBC in 2018. She was canceled about comments about Halloween costumes. Dave Chappelle, Netflix employee, staged a walkout and demanded his comedy special to be pulled for transphobia. Joe Rogan, the left pressured Spotify to drop him, running coordinated campaigns. Tucker Carlson, he was also taken off Fox News. And liberal activists bragged about advertisers pressuring campaigns that helped force them out. Parler, Apple, Google, and Amazon colluded in 2021 to wipe the entire platform off the internet. J.K. Rowling, the writer for Harry Potter, blacklisted from events, attacked by activists, and pressured out of projects for speaking her mind. Mike Lindell, MyPillow, pulled from major retailers, banned from Twitter, targeted with advertiser boycotts. Alex Jones, the ultimate cancel person of all time, removed from every single platform simultaneously, banned in 2018 from YouTube, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. And then that's not to even say like the coordinated, conjunction between government and all the social media platforms during the COVID situation, Hunter Biden laptop. Those were actually proven to be true. That the government coordinated with these major social media platforms to silence all, voices that went against the narrative in regards to COVID or in regards to, the Hunter Biden laptop that changed the entire outcome of that election too as well. And for me, it's like, if you're going to be outraged now and you're really, really pissed off that it's garnered this much attention to it, then at least be consistent, be consistent, or else if you're not, then I don't believe it. I just don't, I just
Then
don't
you're
believe
showing
in
your
that.
hand of your partisanship, your deep partisanship. Because all those things, I don't know the context behind all those things, but their point would be strictly, but how many of those cancellations were a result of FCC pressure, administration pressure from a federal entity? That's what we're about. We're not about, that's what we're angry about. We're not just angry that, people got canceled. It's because of the direct cause of the federal pressure. But to your point, government pressure in another way for silencing folks. You get to choose what you define as government pressure. There's a very legitimate argument that might make it look like there was pressure from AC or from the FCC. I believe their chairman Carr was the one that said there's but then there's also a very, very legitimate reasoning that ABC just did this. It was there. If Carr never said anything, ABC would have fired or suspended Jimmy Kimmel anyways.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to really look at that too.
I think the FCC threatened to pull the license because it broke certain FCC laws around it. And then another particular, how do you say, it's not a network, but like a platform that airs the ABC stuff and somewhere decided to pull the plug on airing that particular show, would then ABC immediately followed suit behind that and said, hey, if they're not doing it, then we're going to pull this off of, too as well and suspend, the affiliates.
Yeah, the affiliates.
Yeah, or something like that. Again, I don't know the fine details of it, of everything, of exactly what's going on. But, okay, so let's just say you guys win, and Jimmy Kimmel gets his full show back and everything, and you're celebrated, was it really an infringement on freedom of speech? I don't know. I don't think so. Jimmy Kimmel can still say whatever he wants in his own private. He let's say he gets his show back and he jumps back on. Is there going to be a sense of I got to be a little bit more careful about kind of what I say or anything? No, he's probably just going to go on a tirade, and guess what? I'm back or whatever, and then no one's gonna pull the plug. Then no one's gonna, at least by government intervention, to force it. Again, I don't know where this is gonna lead. I just think that this is just the hot cake that's on the table now.
This is the attention stealer. This is the new victim is Jimmy Kimmel against the tyranny of censorship. That's the hot button word. And because I believe the legitimacy of the fact that it looks like it would is like if you want to try to call a spade, this person made these threats of remedial things, Carr. Then ABC suspends. Looks like government pressure, and by the letter of the law, the government can't have any sort of pressure or threats or anything like that because that's an infringement. So there's legitimacy in that too. But again, I still look back at there's some correlation, there's some causation. What's the entire picture here? But number two, I think what I discovered is that there's a lot of there's a number of other big corporations cancellations were happening. That was a thing, meaning people would speak out about Kirk and people were being canceled, and there's just this sort of corporate responsibility of trying to do damage control, and it could be that's my belief that it's as simple as that. You're and though you may have a case about some of that governmental control, let's get real, man. If Trump wanted to push his weight around and cancel Jimmy, he would have probably did it a long ass time ago. Be sensitive to the real shit that Jimmy actually said in these times. That's kind of open your eyes to that. It may look like that, but there is no direct evidence that was the case, that FCC pulled the plug on them. And open your eyes to what the hell's going on in terms of the vitriol happening here with Jimmy now pouring gasoline on the fire. Wake the fuck up. Have a sense of touch of reality of what's happening in the homes of America right now. Yeah. So that's why I thought people should be disturbed by the government's control and canceling people. Why are you not disturbed enough by what the hell Jimmy said in the state of affairs in America?
Because people don't have to feel any kind of remorse or fear or sadness in grief in the passing of Charlie Kirk, because he was a monster in himself who said monstrous things that were racist and bigotry and horrible things. It's the entire narrative that gets painted all along. So it's like, of course, Jimmy Fallon can say whatever the hell he wants because, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, he could say whatever the hell he wants because it was a monster that, you know, he was talking about. And we shouldn't feel any shame or pain for that because that's kind of like, you know, Hitler Part 2, number 2's man or something who died. So it's just kind of like, good. We should be celebrating that, you know, like everyone should. So when Jimmy, you know, Kimmel makes fun of it, good for him. And now you guys want to stop him from saying that? No, you know, that's wrong.
That's infringement of First Amendment speech. And, you know, Jimmy Kimmel didn't disdain Charlie Kirk himself. He was just trying to make a joke of the situation and saying, but putting the blame back on, again, such a pathetic move to say that Tyler Robinson may have been really part of the MAGA. They're trying to win. Just like, come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like, like that's like, again, it's just as egregious as saying, like, you're just painting Derek Chauvin in a certain picture for your own political gain and blah, blah, blah. Painting George Floyd in your own political gain. It's the same thing. You witness the situation. It's a tragedy. That shouldn't have fucking happened. Yeah. Both in the Floyd case, both in all this stuff. People need to be accountable to their words. There's a reason why there's a connective thread of people etching their bullets with messaging and stuff. Just wake the fuck up in that regard too. Like, and so that's the saddening part, the very sad part. And that's why I'm very disillusioned by these leaders that do come up, like your Barack Obama's. I need to have a conversation with America too and have these, you know, these public platforms to now speak their voices because they're still not getting to the heart of the issue of like, wake the fuck up. Like, yes, you say the same very trite statements of leadership needs to unite the country right now, blah, blah, blah. But of course, or we do not, you know, political violence has no place. But that goes without saying. Of course, I agree with those things, but it's still so out of touch to what people are experiencing. What the hell's going on? The derisive, intentionally crafted messaging. And Obama, when you were in office, no one was calling you a fascist for deporting all those illegal immigrants that you were doing too. It's like we didn't even remember it happened. It's like, oh, he can do no wrong, you know, like.
The only reason anyone knows is only because that's what MAGA brings up, you know, as their defense, you know.
Now we know after the fact. No one was painting the picture of 1930s Germany when you were doing that. And because I also agreed that it didn't make sense to do that for Obama's term. No one was painting him as that. But by the same measure, what the fuck is going on today? But to put the accountability back on the president saying he needs to, you know, calm the rhetoric. The left needs to calm the fucking rhetoric. I just can't believe that. Like, to say Trump needs to calm the rhetoric. And Trump isn't free from that in his guilt too, because that's just, but at least if there's something about Trump, even though a very charged rhetoric could be bad in many situations, at least he's convicted by what he's saying. Meaning he means it. He's not designing these words to try to craft and get people on their side or whatever. He just, if he calls people a loser, that's actually how he feels, you know, like, and maybe
you're fake news.
Because that's how he feels, at least that. And it may not be right. And you don't agree with how his tact is, but at least he believes it. Whereas this whole message of, again, the anti-democracy and that we're in, that's why it pisses me off in the state of everything that's happening with families, with America, and it's scary.
Yeah.
But don't want to be so gloomy about that, but it's also just, again, as much as I fear it, the more I'm encouraged and emboldened by many, many folks who are also impacted by Charlie Kirk, who didn't know Charlie Kirk that well, who wake up and say, truth will rise to the top.
Yeah.
The truth has to, whether it's my truth, your truth.
Or people like yourself who really didn't pay much attention to Charlie Kirk at all, who didn't know anything, and they hear all this stuff and they see this imagery of his death, and then they hear the accusations of him being a racist, and they actually look into it, and then it kind of wakes them up to go, that's a complete fucking lie. So what else are they lying about? And it's going to awaken up a lot of minds to really, you know, come to terms with everything that's kind of going on, you know? Yeah. And again, I think the truth is really light in understanding the entire system. The system the machine is what I would call it, that runs all of this, that invokes all these emotions and creates this division and so forth like that. I think the biggest accomplishment that we can achieve is really just breaking off from the machine. Like we can wake up from that machine, wake up from that influence, and start to really understand and see each other as humans and neighbors and people again, and understand exactly how the system goes. Because I think that once you start to see the machine and how it works, you can't unsee it. You really can't. You start to see the tactics and how they build it and the verbiage and how the timing of certain things and who's saying what and how it's being said. You can't unsee that kind of stuff no more when you open your eyes to it.
Once you sense that something was said on that side that feels a little contrived, or that feels just like you're forcing this. If you sense it a little bit here and there, now you'll start to. You can't unsee that, and then you can't unsee it when it happens all the time now. And it's sad because are a lot of very competent, sensible, well-meaning leaders on the liberal side, on the left, who are trying to have their voices heard.
Absolutely.
But their own voices are getting drowned out by that too. And that's the sadness too.
And they know that they're not going to win unless they join in on that crowd too. And then they're put in a position where it's kind of difficult to choose and say, how do I win this battle within that battle? It's a game within a game, you know? It's like, how do I still stay true to my moral beliefs and my true values without, you know, sacrificing that in order to gain the power or to gain, you know, whatever it takes to kind of climb up within that circle? Because it's a very, very tight game that they play. It's very selective in who they pick.
It's the Game of Thrones. I always
really
remember
is.
what Cersei said. What was she saying it to us in the first season? It's the Game of Thrones. You either played or was it something? You can bring that quote up because it kind of, I don't remember it verbatim, but it's kind of like what the hell's happening right now. So
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor all this too much, so we can probably wrap it up here in a little bit too, unless you had, I don't know, another take on this, because it's...
No, I mean, I think we unpacked a lot of it, and I think a lot of things were said. I try really hard to keep myself emotionally, like, separated from it, but you can't help it. You know, sometimes there are certain things that do drive, you know, certain emotions and feelings towards, you know, certain subjects and topics and so forth. But I don't know. I think it's a good chat.
And there's more to unpack.
Yeah.
And there's more that'll come.
It's going to still continue going.
There's gonna be a stream, yeah.
By next week, who knows what it is by next week? You know, it'll be, I don't know.
Something entirely different. And
something else.
It's hard to keep pace. 2025 is very unprecedented in that way.
Yeah.
This is our very humble podcast here in, you know, the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and we had hoped to be a place to talk about culture, politics, sports, whatever, what have you, from this cultural perspective that we bring to the table. And now it's being sucked up by the vitriol in this world and the bitterness and the hate. And, you know, all we can do is emulate what we see. If there's anything to honor Charlie Kirk in, is that we take one from his book by just trying to have conversations with people and remember that aspect of him, and to guard yourself from being so hyper reactive to other contrasting sides too, because that's what's happening. A lot of just this hyper reactivity of no, it's this. Let's not be hyper reactive. Let's not be hyper reductive of people. Reduce them to this. They're of that opinion. They're just this. If people just open up and aren't so hyper reductive because our brain chemistry is that, because of our phones and everything, and just gave people their due dignity because they're a person, then I think that could do a lot of healing, you know, in society. Give them the their dignity that's due them, no matter who they are, you know. That's what I loved. That's why I love the movie Anora so much. You know, that came out was that the scene when Anora's the bodyguard that had to assist her throughout the whole time, when they finally expose that you're just the entertainment for the weekend. You're not actually married. I mean, you're legally married now, but you're not anyone special to this guy. Like the parents come in, they don't even give her the dignity to look at her.
In fact, she's the worst case scenario.
She's the worst case. You're just another fire we need to put out.
Yeah.
And the bodyguard says, you guys owe her an apology. Like, owe her an apology? Who the fuck no, like, we're way above this.
Yeah.
That's human dignity. Yes, you deserve her. She deserves a fucking apology, at least, because that's the value of human dignity. And that scene really highlighted that so well.
Yeah.
Because they weren't asking for, well, you need to get, pay her something, or at least give her some money for her trial. No, it's, she deserves, because she's a human being and you guys duped her. And maybe she's just opportunistic too. She's just another opportunistic, stripper. Why does she? No, she's still a human being that you guys duped, dragged around. And this guy says, you guys deserve an apology. He's just the bodyguard. It's kind of weird to ask them of it, because they're so, the parents were so like powerful, different level. And that scene was beautiful. And that's why, I really appreciated that movie. But that's kind of what a little microcosm of the things that need to take place in our society is give everyone, your opponents, your ideological enemies or whatever, don't call them enemy or whatever, give them their due diligence as a human being and learn to have learn to see an area where we can share meaning and values. Look at yourself in the mirror. If you're bitter and you're tired of upholding this narrative and fighting for it, and you find yourself lonely because a lot of the folks that you used to hang out with are no longer there because we just can't reconcile these things. Mm-hmm. Life's too short for that shit, man. Like, it's just a Game of Thrones happening in Washington, D.C., and that's sad. A lot of it's that's the case, but like, we need to get beyond these little spats and this sensation that my only option is to do something radical. Mm-hmm. My only option is to kill that person because I can't see another way of living this life. Mm-hmm. My only option is to cast out my friend or my brother or my sister forever because we will just never, that person's beneath me. Mm-hmm. I'm getting on my soapbox here, but that's yada yada gold. That's what we're trying to do here.